So this module is going to sort of give you some tips on how to master your research paper and talk about some areas where other students have really struggled. And so I want to give you some guidance. So we're going to talk about paragraph structure. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about why we cite. We're going to talk about how to effectively cite, when and how to use quotes, how to properly cite a quotation, and give you a few other tips. So let's begin by talking about paragraph structure. At a minimum, a paragraph should be 4 to 5 sentences, not 1 or 2 sentences, not 20 sentences. If you have several short paragraphs, you need to look at those and focus on maybe adding some more material to those paragraphs, or determine if you can move those sentences around and add them to current existing paragraphs. Your paragraphs should focus on a single idea. They should not be focusing on 3 different ideas. That's how paragraphs get very long and kind of unwieldy. That paragraph should focus on that particular idea, with each sentence in that paragraph relating to that idea. So think of it this way: if you start your paragraph, your first sentence in your paragraph should be kind of an introduction and give your reader an idea of what this paragraph is going to talk about. So it will be like a thesis statement of your paragraph. Every sentence after that should sort of point back to that sentence and support that sentence. Paragraphs should have no more than 1 quotation. A paragraph can have multiple in-text citations, but only 1 quotation, and you should have more than 1 paragraph on a page. You should not have 1 whole paragraph be your page. That's too much in a paragraph. Some ways to kind of develop your paragraph is to use examples or cite data, facts, statistics, evidence, details, and other information. That's a way to beef up your paragraph. You can examine testimony, again, what other people say, such as quotes and paraphrasing. Again, you should only have 1 quote per paragraph. You can define some terms in your paragraph. For example, you can define what ADHD stands for. You can define what Asperger's syndrome is. You can define all of those. You can compare and contrast within the body of your paragraph. You can evaluate some causes and reasons. Examine effects and consequences. You can analyze your topic. You can describe the topic of your paper in your first opening paragraph. Or you can offer chronology of an event, kind of breaking it down by time. When you need to start a new paragraph, that's when you are beginning with a new idea, or you're contrasting information or ideas, when your reader needs a pause. Remember that your paragraph should not be an entire page long, and your reader is going to need a pause from that, because that's clearly information overload. I kind of call it word vomit. So you're just kind of throwing all of this information at them, and they don't know what they're supposed to do with all this information, and they've not been given adequate time to process it. When you're ending your introduction or starting your conclusion, when you're beginning your introductory paragraph or you're starting your conclusion paragraph, those should be their own paragraphs. When you're beginning or ending your paragraph, you need to create a transition for your reader when you begin or end each paragraph. So when you begin each paragraph, you want to talk about you want to begin that new paragraph with sort of the thesis of that paragraph. And when you end each paragraph, you want to sort of summarize the paragraph again and let your reader know that the paragraph is ending. So, you kind of want your paragraph to be 4 to 5 sentences long, and then you want to add in that final sentence, so that that the reader knows we're going on to something new. Next, we're going to talk about citing. So why do we cite? To reiterate what was explained in the lecture, citing gives your paper credibility. When you cite the DSM-5 as your source for a particular disorder, it lets the reader know that you really know what you're talking about. It allows the reader to know that your paper and what you're writing about is based on research, not just your opinion, and it shows that you know what you're talking about, that you have authority on the issue. It builds a foundation for your paper. Some amazing breakthroughs have been built on the scholarship of others. A citation lets the reader know where you got your information from so that they can review the source for themselves. And it also helps you avoid plagiarism. So how do we cite? There are two types of citations. There is the ending citation and there is the lead-in citation. The ending citation clearly comes at the end. So like what you see on the screen, changes to precipitation, blah, 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 Conway 2008, period. So the Conway 2008 lets me know that the author found that information, is paraphrasing from Conway, who the source was written in 2008. The next kind of citation, and my personal favorite, is the lead-in citation. Conway 2008 suggests that changes to blah, blah, blah. Notice that this right here, that this whole paragraph right here, this whole sentence is the exact same sentence that you saw on the previous screen, except it has a lead-in citation. Okay, so the lead-in citation right here lets me know from the very beginning that this is not necessarily the author's idea, but the author's idea based on the information that they found in this Conway source. It doesn't leave me waiting till the end to know, oh, this isn't something that you came up with on your own. So I'm a big fan of lead-in citations because it lets the reader know right away what where the information came from. So next we're going to talk about quotations. So there's a couple of rules about quotations. Number one, use your quotes sparingly. My distinct opinion is that a research paper should have no more than 5 quotes in the entire paper. You're only writing between 6 and 10 pages on average. That would be about 1 quotation per page. Not per paragraph, but per page. And rule number 2, only use quotes when paraphrasing is absolutely impossible, when there is no way to restate the information without losing the intended meaning. That's it. That's the only time you should quote. When you quote, you need to surround the quote with ideas on how or why this information is important. You can't just throw a quote on the paper and then go on talking about something else. Remember, your paragraph needs to be pretty cohesive, and so all things need to kind of beef up that quote and tell me why that quote is absolutely essential to the thesis of that paragraph. So let's talk about quoting and citing properly, because they're two sort of intertwined ideas. So quotes must be placed in quotation marks. So anything that is not your words and you're using someone else's words verbatim, you need to put inside of a pair of quotation marks. Quotes must have a citation including the page number. Again, notice that here we've got a quote and then we've got the page number here, and it's not PG, it's P period and then a number. That's important. It's not PG and it's not PP, it's just P. There are 2 ways to quote. Again, you can do kind of that lead-in citation thing. You can do Smith 1999 states, and this is a fake quote, the quick brown fox. You will recognize the quick brown fox. It's something that was sort of was developed long ago, and so I'm faking the author and the year and the page number. But again, you can use that lead-in quote, and then at the end, you don't have to restate Smith 99, but you just put the page number at the very end. And notice that the period comes after the quotation. Okay, not inside the quote over here, but after the parentheses. When quoting more than 40 words, and again, you really have to have a really good reason to quote more than 40 words from a single source in short research papers. There are entire dissertations in excess of 150 pages that have no block quotations. So keep that in mind. If you absolutely have to use a block quote, then you need to format it properly. So this is a block quote. This is text before. This is the block quote here. And then there's text after. And notice that the period comes after the block quotation, not after the reference. This is the only time that this happens. But note that there is a page number, there is the full list of authors and the year, and all the components of a citation, an in-text citation, are there. So again, you better have a really good reason to use a block quote in a short paper that's, I'd say, less than 25 pages. So keep that kind of information in mind. And so last but not least, we're going to talk about a few other tips. Things like acronyms. So when you're introducing something like ADHD, you have to introduce it first as attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and then you put ADHD in parentheses, and then you go on with your sentence. From then on, you can use the acronym ADHD. You do not have to say attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and then put the ADHD in parentheses. You just simply say ADHD and then keep on moving. So there are some things that you don't have to cite, things that are considered common knowledge. I don't consider there to be a whole lot of common knowledge in your research papers, but things like the War of 1812, World War II, the current president of the United States, the first president of the United States, the presidents of the United States. Those things are considered common knowledge. Things like that there are 50 states in the United States. That's common knowledge stuff. Everything else probably should have a citation. If you put something down and it doesn't have a citation, then you probably are too close to the topic and you're writing about your personal experience, which is not the intention of a research paper. So keep that in mind. There have been students who have written about type 1 diabetes, and they have gone on to explain the different ways to evaluate a person's blood sugar, and there's no citation, and that's because that's their experience. That's not okay. They had to learn that information from somewhere, whether it was from a website or from an article that they read in a magazine or a pamphlet that their doctor handed them. They were not born knowing that information. They did not absorb that information through, routine schooling. That information was provided to them in some way, and so they have to provide a source for that information. Something that gets a lot of students is that once you cite the source in a paragraph the first time, you do not need to cite a second time within the same paragraph unless you are quoting, which of course you must provide a correct page number citation. This gets a little bit tricky. Let's go back really quick here to the citation. So when you begin your paragraph, or at some point in your paragraph, you cite like this, okay? Conway 2008 it suggests. Then you don't need to quote, you don't need to cite every time. You can just say other ways to cite that, other ways to say that. Conway also suggests that the ocean is rising. I'm kind of going off the cuff here. But when you do it like this, okay, when you cite like this, then the next time you mention Conway, okay, so if you have a sentence like this and then a couple of sentences later you decide to say Conway suggests, you need to put that 2008 there. That's important that that information is provided there so that we know we're not talking about a different article by Conway. We're still talking about that same article. And then if you quote, of course, you must put a page number. So that's something that's kind of tricky for multiple quoting the same author multiple times in the same, citing the same author multiple times in the same paragraph. That kind of is important. And so those are some things that you need to kind of get comfortable with. All of this information is found in your APA Style Made Easy textbook. But this is some information that I wanted to pull out and sort of highlight for you so that you could get a little more comfortable with it.